The words on the wall were clear. It read, "Congratulations, juniors. If you can see the words written on this very wall, it proves that you have passed the test posed by the Tianyan puppet. You should also be the destined person of our Azure Dragon clan. There is only one way to get out of here and outsmart fate. That is to become a devouring dragon, the most powerful devouring dragon to ever exist. In accordance with my prediction, there will be a major calamity in 30 years. I'm afraid no creatures will be able to survive it. I have kept a drop of my Azure Dragon blood essence here, and you are allowed to take away 1/10 of it. Remember to keep your greed in control, or it shall be the death of you." Seeing this line of text, everyone's face became very serious. This was especially true for Zane, who had come across the words devouring dragon.
Did this man with the Azure Dragon bloodline know about the devouring dragon?
Zane was confused. However, it was said that these divine beasts from the demon clan carried their own heritage. If he could squirrel something away, he might be able to pry into its mysteries. The others were also discussing enthusiastically.
The calamity written here. Might it be the Sword King killing the 5 ancestors and sealing their bloodlines?
Eric's eyes lit up, and he began to look around, searching for something. Finally, in a pool not far away, he saw a vivid sculpture of the Azure Dragon with bared fangs and brandished claws. The sculpture was covered with dense green scales, and its fangs were threatening enough just by existing. A vortex of light blue water slowly swirled around it, rotating non-stop. As it approached, a sense of oppression from its bloodline burst out. It managed to obfuscate the people's consciousness, but it seemed like there was something missing.
What exactly is missing? Zane, pass me the bead that you have obtained earlier.
Stunned, Zane handed it over to her. Sucking in a deep breath, Nina pressed the green bead into the eye of the sculpture.
Eureka! It really is the eye of the Azure Dragon.
Suddenly, a terrifying and loud dragon cry came from the sculpture. The arm-sized Azure Dragon sculpture suddenly swayed, and the stones around its body gradually fell down. It suddenly rose into the sky and swayed with the wind, exuding an ancient and suffocating aura. The surrounding air suddenly stilled, as if a huge hand was controlling everything in the dark.
Is this the legendary Azure Dragon?
Someone was taken by surprise and unconsciously retreated a few steps.
No. The legendary Azure Dragon can't be this small. This should be the same as before. It is a puppet.
Zane had personally seen the devouring dragon, so he knew that it was definitely not one of the dragon clan. In terms of size and deterrent power, the little dragon in front of him obviously paled too much in comparison. The little Azure Dragon roared angrily and opened its mouth wide. A dazzling red light came from the depths of its mouth. The moment the red light appeared, Zane's heart suddenly thudded. He narrowed his eyes and saw a drop of blackish red blood in the little Azure Dragon's mouth. This was the blood essence of the Azure Dragon mentioned on the wall. The blood essence emitted a gloomy light and slowly landed in Nina's hand.
This is undoubtedly the blood essence of the Azure Dragon.
David was taken aback, but he involuntarily took a few steps forward.
Nina, can you show me the blood essence of the Azure Dragon?
Nina didn't care about it and was about to grab the blood essence in her hand, but at this time Alora stopped her.
Wait a minute. The blood essence of the Azure Dragon is of great importance. Let me take care of it first.
At this moment, no one noticed that David's expression had changed. His smile had disappeared completely. Suddenly, an air of ill omen surrounded him. He grabbed Nina's wrist with one hand and snatched the blood essence away.
I really found it by sheer luck. It's not a waste of effort for me to come here.
At that moment, Nina screamed, startling everyone.
You're hurting me! For God's sake!
David was not being himself. He shot a cold glance at Nina and scoffed coldly.
If you had given me the Azure Dragon Essence blood at that moment, you wouldn't have ended up like this.
Suddenly, a ball of black flames appeared in David's hand, and the demonic energy surrounding him was monstrous. Demonic energy rushed toward Nina from all directions. In the blink of an eye, the elegant and beautiful Nina was ignited. Her skin had shriveled and lost its elasticity. In the end, she was reduced to ashes amid a miserable scream. This all happened too fast and too suddenly. The others didn't even have time to react.
What are you doing, David? Are you crazy?
Victor glared at him and waved his fist to attack him without hesitation.
Wait, don't be impulsive.
Elora, realizing that something was wrong, quickly tried to stop Victor. However, it was too late. David gave an unbridled and strange smile, and the black flames all over his body directly rolled toward Victor. The raging fire surrounded Victor and killed him in the blink of an eye.
This can't be! This cultivation method definitely didn't come from the Five Spirit Sect.
Elora recognized where the black flame originated. Her beautiful eyes narrowed and she gasped.
This blasted guy is a spy of the Devil Flame Sect.
David burst into laughter.
I didn't expect my Devil Flame Sect to have such a great reputation. Even the female disciple of the Azure Dragon Academy knows about it. Originally, I was planning to get my hands on the blood essence and leave right after, but now I've changed my mind. Elora, come with me and I'll spare your life. As for the others, you all can go to hell.
As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed and he appeared in front of Eric and Patrick. David suddenly slapped them. Even though they had been on guard for a long time, they still suffered damage and were slightly injured. Following this, David appeared behind Elora like a ghost. His terrifying and powerful palm suddenly grabbed her shoulder.
Don't even think about it.
Elora was no pushover either. A wild wind roared around her from head to toe, causing her opponent to be knocked away in an instant. Then she put her palms together and frowned. Her eyes suddenly became firm and cold.
Wind, thunder palm.
A gust of wind filled the sky and formed a vortex. It gathered in the center of her palm and suddenly shot out. With a sharp whistling sound, the wind blades rushed toward him. However, David's eyes were hidden as he sized up her body, his throat issuing a hissing sound. Not only did he not dodge, but he was even fearless. A palm wrapped in black flames struck out violently. The two forces collided with each other, causing a blast of air to radiate out.
Quick, before he can escape! Reclaim the blood essence of the Azure Dragon! No matter who gets this thing, it can't fall into the hands of the Devil Flame Sect.
Patrick's reaction was also very fast. At that moment, while Elora was fighting with her opponent, the Musui sword was held in his hand. Now that he was facing a formidable enemy, he no longer held back his strength. Instead, he struck out with his sword. The sharp and heaven-defying sword will was attached to the sword and rushed up to the sky. At the same time, Zane's weapon was also filled with sword radiance, an unstoppable sword energy, and a brilliant ray of light chopped down on David's skull. The sword energy, which could cut anything in half, was suddenly blocked by the black flame and was even burned to pieces.
Bah! How dare you little brats try to fight me? Allow me to show you the tip of the iceberg of my strength.
David's eyes were gleaming with a creepy dark light, his whole body on fire. A wall made out of fire rolled over his body and instantly blocked the way of Zane and the other two. Elora's wind thunder palm was dissolved by him. Then a force fell on her shoulder, trying to gain control of her. However, Elora was the personal disciple of the Dean, and she had the highest level of cultivation among the people who entered the Dragon Temple. She kept her wits about her. A ball of green light condensed on her fingertips. With her brows slightly knitted, she looked nettled.
You're trying to take me away by force? Let us see if you have the strength needed.
She tapped lightly on the void space with her finger. Suddenly, an agile fluorescent light filled the air, and a cluster of elegant and mysterious energy was injected into the opponent's body.
Wind Spirit Force.
The fluorescent gas didn't seem to have any power, but the moment it entered his body, David's expression suddenly changed. He felt as if his elixir field had been invaded by an energy force, freezing the vital force inside.
It works!
A wave of delight washed over Elora. In the past, she had spent a large amount of vital energy to condense this wind spirit force. Although it didn't look very powerful, it had endless magical effects. She wouldn't need to execute this martial art if she was only facing an ordinary second stage foundation level cultivator. However, even a fifth stage foundation level cultivator had no choice but to retreat after taking her blow. But alas, she'd still underestimated David's strength. The wind spirit force in David's elixir field suddenly began to burst and splinter into hundreds of wind blades. However, they were instantly surrounded by a swarm of vital energy. The wind spirit force was outnumbered by David's vital energy, and they perished altogether. In his elixir field, a light blue spiritual meridian flowed quietly like a river, continuously providing him with vital energy.
Heaven Meridian?
Elora's expression changed drastically. She was shocked, blood draining from her face. Just as the wind spirit force was destroyed, she had sensed a powerful vital energy in David's body. It turned out to be the Heaven Meridian. To even form a Heaven Meridian, one must reach the 6th stage of the foundation level and merge 12 orbs of vital energy. In other words, the enemy in front of her was a 6th stage foundation level practitioner, to say the least. For all she knew, he could even be at the 7th or 8th stage.
Now that you've seen it, I'll just come clean. I'm at the 7th stage of the foundation level. As long as I wish to, I can pulverize everyone here in a heartbeat, but I don't intend to hurt such a beautiful woman. Be docile and come with me, and I can spare your life. As for them, let them pray for themselves.
David was pleased with himself, his tone becoming more and more sinister. With a flip of his hand, the nearby black flames immediately increased in size. He even opened his mouth and popped into it the Azure Dragon's blood essence that was stolen from Nina. He swallowed it instantly. Ever so gratified, he enjoyed the wonderful feeling of the Azure Dragon's blood essence flowing into his stomach.
Thunder Spear.
The black flame seemed to have met its nemesis and began to weaken slowly. A figure rushed out from the gap in the wall of fire. It was Zane. His eyes were shining, and his killing intent was overflowing.
Separation of vital energy.
The overbearing sword radiance struck straight at the opponent's waist, but after a long stalemate, it suddenly splintered.
What? How is this possible?
Zane's pupils constricted in disbelief, but with the help of his spirit eyes, he noticed that the outline of his opponent's body was covered with a layer of turbid flame, undiscernible with the naked eye. Like a shield, the flames protected David without leaving any blind spots.
Energy shield.
Zane's mind went blank for a moment. Then he finally understood what was going on. It was actually an energy shield. It was a divine ability that could only be condensed by someone at the 7th stage of the foundation level. Even if an empty-handed David allowed his opponent to attack with all their might, he might not even suffer a nick of harm. On the contrary, his opponent might be injured by the backlash of the energy shield. He stopped in a hurry and turned to shout at Eric behind him, stopping his forward momentum just in time.
Eric! Change of plan. David had been hiding his strength. There is no way we could win. Hurry back to the Sect and obtain support from all the elders and Dean.
Running away? Nice try.
David threw several powerful black fireballs at Eric's head. However, they were split in two by Zane and Patrick.
Hurry up and leave! We'll cover you.
I got it.
Eric crushed the token, and his body gradually became illusory. In the blink of an eye, he had left the Dragon Temple. However, his actions had thoroughly enraged David. Once the old fellows came in, even if there was only one, he would not be able to bear it. He had to escape, but before escaping, Zane and Patrick, these two little pains in the ass, must be dealt with. He released a thick ball of black smoke from his palm and wrapped it around Elora. It straitjacketed her movement. Even the flow of vital energy in her body began to stagnate. Then David moved his body and mysteriously appeared behind the duo.
To have run into me? You only have your bad luck to blame.
A palm wrapped in black flames slammed onto the two of them. Immediately, a powerful force erupted from their bodies. Then wisps of black flames attached to their skin, burrowing into their bodies like earthworms. They kept biting and twisting in Zane's and Patrick's flesh and meridians. Immediately, a sharp pain rushed to their heads. Patrick's expression changed drastically as he hurriedly used his vital energy to protect his meridians. However, the moment the black flame entered Zane's body, it was instantly annihilated by two strange energies. One of them was the extremely strong and powerful sky thunder of the dark domain. It was the nemesis of evil ghosts and monsters. The other was the nine-genuine flame. It came from the three-legged golden crow divine beast. As the ancestor of all flames, how could it be afraid of this tiny flame?
What? Why the hell are you unscathed?
Why, indeed? Ask my sword.
Zane suddenly pulled out his sword. Numerous phantom sword lights dazzled the opponent, but it didn't cause too much damage.
You are very strange, Zane. I'll keep your name in mind. But I won't stand on ceremony now that I heard Alora is your woman. I will play with you the next time we meet.
David twisted his body and appeared beside Alora, who was wrapped in thick smoke. He picked her up with one hand and bolted in the direction of the exit. If the messenger had left, it meant that an elder of the intermediate level could appear at any time. He had no choice but to bail. He slipped away. Zane was stunned and was about to catch up with him, but he hesitated when he looked at Patrick beside him.
Don't worry about me. I can resist the invasion of the evil force for the time being. Hurry up and catch up with my sister.
Patrick winced as he strained to get the words out.
Okay, don't fret. I won't let anything happen to Elora.
Zane nodded. He used all of his strength to unleash the second move of the three-star step. With a kick of his legs, layers of phantoms appeared, then disappeared in an instant. In the wilderness outside of the Dragon Temple, David fled with Alora in tow with absolute strength at the 7th stage of the foundation level. Behind him, Zane, who had a stern look on his face, chased doggedly. His monstrous killing intent rolled over. In David's eyes, Zane, who was at the peak of the 2nd stage of the foundation level, was courting his own death. If he went all out, it would be easy to wipe Zane off the face of the earth. However, David was still extremely suspicious. He thought that Zane was merely trying to stall for time by chasing after him and pestering him. Even if Zane was dead, he would still be able to hold off David. When the old monster of the intermediate level arrived, he would have no way out. Therefore, even if he had the ability to think that he could kill Zane, David did not make a move. After all, the longer they stayed there, the more dangerous it would be. He looked down from the sky above the Dragon Temple. A monstrous demonic flame was condensing in front. Behind him, there were several illusory and agile phantoms chasing after them.
David, put Elora down. You can take the blood essence of the Azure Dragon with you.
Behind him, Zane continued to utilize the second movement of the three-star step, but all he could do was keep up. The difference in strength between the 7th stage and the 2nd stage of the foundation level was simply too great. It was far from being equal to 1 or 2 martial arts and cultivation methods. Ever since he had sneaked into the Five Spirits sect, the stunning appearance of Alora had been deeply engraved into his mind. He wanted to take the woman and the Azure Dragon's blood essence. Furthermore, as long as he escaped to a certain location in the Dragon Temple, he would naturally have a way to leave with no one the wiser. At that time, even if the 4 elders and the dean personally came out, they could only stare. When he saw that David was fleeing in front of him without any intention of paying attention to him, Zane's heart burned with anxiety. The 72 orbs of vital energy hovering in his elixir field suddenly began to boil. One of the orbs of vital energy immediately evaporated with a swoosh.
3-star step, the 3rd movement.
After that, thick waves of vital energy immediately spread. Zane suddenly disappeared from his original spot. His entire body was enveloped by a rolling gust of flowing light. He broke through the air at an incredible speed. Even the air itself was flattened. In a breath's time, the distance between them had been narrowed to just 300 meters apart. David, who was in front of him, was shocked.
Damn, he knows the 3rd movement of the 3-star step
It was the last movement Zane had comprehended in the star map. In the past, it was not easy to use because it was less potent. Although the speed of the explosion was amazing, it was very short. Furthermore, each time he used it, he would consume a mouthful of vital energy. If it were anyone else, they would definitely not cultivate this method. After all, vital energy was the foundation of a martial practitioner. Once one's vital energy was exhausted, one could only wait to die. However, Zane's vital energy was different from an ordinary person's. Moreover, desperate times called for desperate measures.
The third movement of the 3-star step.
Zane executed it 5 times in a row, and 5 orbs of vital energy instantly evaporated. But the distance between the two was greatly reduced. At the last moment, he used it again. When he got close to David, a burst of black and silver exploded out, and thunder spears bombarded David in an instant. The air was filled with a huge mess of thunder and lightning the size of a hair. David was instantly enveloped by the violent thunder and lightning. As he shuttled through the thunder swamp, wisps of thunderbolts poured into his body, making him feel a sense of powerlessness. Furthermore, the sky thunder of the dark domain was the undoing of demons and monsters. It could hurt David.
Fuck, this is annoying as hell.
He suddenly turned around and threw Allura to the ground. His icy cold, almost triangular eyes stared at Zane, and suffocating, killing intent radiated from them.
I gave you the easy way out, but you insist on going to hell. I didn't intend to kill you today, but boy, you're such a pain in the ass. If news of me being chased and killed by a kid at the peak of the 2nd stage of the Foundation level were to spread, I'm afraid that my wisdom over the years will go down the drain.
As he said this, he quickly gestured with his hands, and strange black smoke appeared everywhere on his body. Suddenly, he disappeared like a ghost and reappeared in front of Zane. The red and black mark on his palm gave off a deathly aura.
Sky Dragon Curse!
Sword shield.
The deep black light instantly surged and struck Zane's body. The sword shield was easily pierced through and then instantly engulfed and devoured. The rolling black light directly exploded. His eyes went black and his chest hurt. A terrifying spiritual impact, like that of a fiend-like god, poured into his mind. It was as if a demon that could destroy the world had completely destroyed his spirit. Even the flesh and blood of his limbs were broken and bleeding.
If this continues, I won't be able to save Allura, and might even have to sacrifice myself in the process.
While he was in a daze, Zane almost fainted from the shock. He was also seriously injured, but there was only one way to save Allura.
Divine bow!
With a wave, a dazzling golden longbow was held in his hand. Suddenly, a burst of light like that of the sun and the moon burst out, instantly dispelling the endless, abyssal, divine light around. Even the scorching sun in the sky was dimmer and smaller than it was. The terrifying aura that was capable of destroying the void and looking down on the world came from the longbow. It was enough to make everything in the world prostrate before it. Even the space in the sky was filled with a burst of burning aura. It caused boundless flames to rise and roll, directly tearing through the surrounding black light into pieces. David's expression changed drastically the moment he saw the bow. The bravado on his face when he taunted Zane earlier had instantly vanished and was instead filled with endless fear. In front of the extremely terrifying fluctuations of the divine bow, he was like a drop of water in the ocean. His pupils immediately shrank and his mind jolted. He could only feel his guts trembling. David's chest was unable to release vital energy, to the extent that he didn't even have the courage to flick his 10 fingers.
Time to run. I have to escape or I will definitely die.
He no longer had time to care about Allura, who was lying on the ground. He turned around and fled desperately. The orbs of vital energy in his body kept rolling and pouring into the black flames around him, wrapping him up as he tried running in a certain direction.
Zane's longbow is too strange. It seems to be called the Divine Bow. How could such a run-of-the-mill boy have such a fearsome artifact in his hand? As long as I escape with the blood essence of the Azure Dragon, I'll make a fortune. As for Allura, I can more than make up for it with other women. Well, see you around, losers. After leaving the Dragon Temple, I must make sure my real body avoids this weird boy.
He was so anxious that he disappeared in 2 or 3 breaths. Only some burning flames were left on the ground. However, an idea flashed across Zane's eyes. His unusual eye strength instantly pierced through tens of kilometers of space and locked onto the fleeing David.
Not so fast, David.
Zane drew his right hand and pulled the bow by 1/10. Immediately, the vital energy in his body was madly extracted, and in an instant, he had consumed 50 vital energy. Then a golden arrow condensed on the bow.
Divine bow, strike!
He released his right hand and the golden arrow immediately shot out. The sound of an explosion instantly drowned out everything. The terrifying golden flame tore everything around into pieces and tore the void apart. Heaven and earth were trapped in an endless fire and hurricane of waves. Under the terrifying pressure of the divine bow, even the earth collapsed in an instant. David had evaporated the moment the heat wave appeared. In less than 10 breaths, he was reduced to ashes, leaving nothing behind. Only a drop of crimson blood was left floating in the air. The toll of the pursuit had taken its toll on Zane's body. The frenetic output of immense vital energy almost sucked him dry. Perhaps just a gust of wind could blow out the fire of his life. If it wasn't for his abundant orbs of vital energy, he would have long since perished. Zane had a splitting headache as he hurried to Allura's side. David's death caused the black smoke fueled by his vital energy to lose its power and dissipate. But as she had been trapped in it for a long time, Allura was in a coma.
Allura, wake up!
He gently patted her fair face, but there was no response. Zane was also worried and wondered if she had perhaps received any blows from the battle just now. But after giving her a quick once-over and confirming that she was only unconscious, he was relieved. He moved her to a relatively safe place and settled her there before rushing dozens of kilometers away. In that area, almost everything around it was burned to ashes. The plains that were once full of vitality were left scorched black. Countless rocks had been turned into powder. Grains of sand stirred in the wind. However, only the pure drop of blood essence of the Azure Dragon remained constant. It was almost exactly the same as when it first appeared. Zane, who was standing there, was lost in thought.
Why had the 9 genuine flame burned everything else and spared only the Azure Dragon's blood essence?
But soon he came to a conclusion.
Perhaps the Azure Dragon was a divine beast like the 3-legged golden crow. That was why it had survived.
He reached out 2 fingers and gently pinched the drop of the Azure Dragon's blood essence that was granted. Even though it was only 1/10 of the original essence, at that moment his body seemed to have been electrified. The blood all over his body was wildly pumping through his entire body, boiling with unseen power. An uncontrollable desire inexplicably emerged in his mind.
Should I consume it? This is definitely what the form of the Elder Wyvern needs.
Zane's eyes lit up as he jumped into the dragon prison. No matter what happened in the outside world, the prison remained unaffected. Sitting on the ground, in addition to this drop of blood essence, there were more than a dozen drops of blood of different depths floating around him. These were the bloodlines of ancient demonic beasts obtained from the wild beasts in the arena. Finally, Zane began to cultivate the dragon annihilation art as he attempted to devour all the bloodlines. He murmured something unintelligible. However, the orbs of vital energy in his body were agitated as if they had been activated. In the end, they drilled through the spot between Zane's eyebrows. At that moment, it was as if his body was being burned by a raging fire. Because of the Azure Dragon's blood essence, the divine bow sealed on the back of his left hand also reacted. He didn't know how long he had been cultivating. He had stayed in the dragon prison for a few days. After a few days, the last trace of blood essence between Zane's eyebrows was completely refined. The orbs of vital energy in his elixir field began to emit dazzling, dark silver light. Suddenly, there was a commotion, and numerous streams of vital energy spewed out from within, 108 in total. The moment the last orb of vital energy appeared, the vital energy seed was instantly shattered. His body burst out with immense power. He had reached the third stage of the foundation level. Zane was in a rhapsody of delight. He opened his eyes and relished the wonderful feeling brought by the blood essence. It was as if his body was as light as a swallow. Countless amounts of power poured into his body. Even his meridians and talent had been improved. Endless black clouds rolled in from all directions and condensed on one point. Suddenly, there were tens of thousands of terrifying fluctuations. They slowly approached like heavenly might, bringing with them endless power that shattered the entire heavens and earth. Looking up, he saw that the mouth of devouring dragon, which had been floating in the air, had changed. The skull near the dragon's mouth grew rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Pieces of terrifying white bones were attached to his mouth from God knows where. The huge dragon's skull gradually took shape. In an instant, the color of the sky changed as the spatial barrier collapsed. Countless wild and violent thunderbolts suddenly descended. It was as though it could not contain the skeleton of the devouring dragon. This caused Zane, the owner of the dragon prison, to feel a chill slither down his spine. His expression changed drastically. There was a void in the skull's huge eyes. It looked like a monster that had escaped from hell. But when the dragon head skull took shape, a warm current suddenly appeared in his body. A microscopic piece of the skull was integrated into his flesh. A muffled thunder-like fluctuation lingered over his body, and a faint airflow could be seen. It flowed along his limbs and into his heart. Ever since the appearance of the dragon prison, Zane had experienced endless surprises. In any case, he also needed to find a way to repair the dragon's body.
It's been 7 days since I left the Dragon Temple and entered the Dragon Prison. If my guess is right, the outside world should have been looking for my whereabouts. It's time to go back. Otherwise, once the Dragon Temple is closed, I don't know how many years it will take for me to leave.
He muttered, jumped out of the dragon prison, and returned to the wilderness of the Dragon Temple. Counting down the days, it was not long before the Dragon Temple was closed. He simply took out the token, distributed by the elders, and crushed it directly. With a crisp sound, he disappeared. In the air above the martial contest hall, the Dragon Temple was still floating, emitting a brilliant light. The number of disciples waiting below was much fewer than on the day of the opening. The 4 elders and the dean were not there. A wearied young girl lowered her eyes in silence. The breeze ruffled her messy hair, which made her tired and haggard face more charming. The boy standing next to the girl looked at her with a pained expression. He hesitated and did not know how to comfort her.
Sister, you're here every day waiting for Zane. If he was really safe, he should have come out long ago. Moreover, you were out cold at that time, so you have no idea how powerful David was. Forget about Zane. Even if we join hands and fight him, it is likely that we will only end up...
Patrick trailed off. Of course, she knew what Patrick said was true. However, there was still a glimmer of hope in her heart, still hoping for a miracle to happen. Of course, she also knew how likely Zane was to survive. But...
Patrick, you don't have to comfort me. Just let me wait here for a while. There's still some time before the Dragon Temple is closed. If...
At that moment, the majestic and powerful Dragon Temple in the sky suddenly flashed. An elite dragon's roar blasted out. A faint light fell from the sky and landed not far from them. It was none other than Zane. The moment he saw Zane, all thoughts eluded Patrick's mind. The corner of his mouth twitched. He thought he had seen a ghost. However, Elora was disoriented. Tears sprang to her eyes right away. She hurriedly trotted up to him and took a deep breath.
You are really Zane?
Looking at Elora's bloodshot and red eyes, Zane smiled through his distress.
If I am not Zane, am I a ghost? Why? Don't you want me to come back?
Of course, I want that.
She immediately retorted. Her body froze and her tears fell one by one. She was now crying with joy. Patrick, who was also excited, pouted and joked with Zane.
Zane, no, it seems that I should call you brother-in-law. You haven't the faintest idea of how many tears my sister had shed for you while you disappeared.
Zane felt a surge of warmth in his heart. When he was about to explain what had happened, Vaniel from the Hall of Foreign Affairs rushed over with a strange expression.
Zane, you've returned? The Dean has ordered that as soon as you come back, you should head to the Dragon Spiral Hall.
The Dragon Spiral Hall?
Zane was already prepared to be grilled and had already thought of a solution, but he had never expected it to come so fast. He had barely exchanged a few words with Elora.
Take it easy. I'll go with you.
No sooner had she said that than she linked her arm with Zane's and followed Vaniel to the hall. Seeing this, Patrick was caught between happiness and sadness. However, he quickly followed them. In the Dragon Spiral Hall, the four elders each sat in a corner. The Dean, Harrison Xavier, sat in the center. The whole hall was permeated with a heavy sense of oppression. Endless vital energy rippled in the air like a flood. At the first step, Zane felt what seemed like a huge, terrifying arm grabbing him tightly, and his entire body tensed up. His face changed slightly. He stepped forward and said in a loud voice,
"Warm greetings, Master and Elders."
The 5 intermediate-level elders had indifferent expressions on their faces when they saw Zane, whom they hadn't seen for more than 10 days. Inwardly, though, they were gasping wildly. Zane's cultivation realm had risen from the peak of the first stage of the foundation level to the 3rd.
Zane, the 5 of us are already privy to the incident in the Dragon Temple. When we got there, we combed the entire Dragon Temple, yet couldn't find any trace of you. Where did you go?
I was seriously injured and was hiding to heal myself.
You're lying!
Lane slammed the table and sprang to his feet. His face was full of a dark, evil spirit, and a burst of pressure came from behind him. It pressed heavily on Zane's shoulder as Lane berated him.
We found what looked like a havoc-wreaked battlefield 5 kilometers away from Elora. That place was utterly destroyed and already forming a bottomless abyss. This terrifying power was absolutely not something that a Foundation-level cultivator could unleash. Tell me the truth about that day.
Zane had long anticipated such a scene. After all, the power displayed by the divine bow was far beyond his imagination.
If I were to find some excuses to gloss it over, my story wouldn't hold up.
Zane thought he might as well just relay the truth.
I'm going to put it simply. After the Devil Flame Sect spy, David King, kidnapped Elora, I kept chasing after him. As he was afraid that the elders would come at any time, he decided to fight with me. However, he was at the 7th stage of the Foundation level. How could I have stood up to him? In a panic, I took the blood essence of the Azure Dragon and swallowed it instantly. The moment my talent awakened, he was bombarded into something lesser than meat pulps.
Words flowed smoothly out of Zane's mouth, mixing the lie with truths and vice versa. After all, they only needed to investigate the matter of David King's death and the Azure Dragon blood essence to find out the truth. Lying in front of the 5 elders would be a suicide mission. Although they had long braced themselves for this, it still didn't make it any easier to hear how Zane had swallowed the invaluable blood essence. The faces of the 5 people changed dramatically, and their minds trembled.
What did you say? You consumed the blood essence of the Azure Dragon.
What else can I do? How can a mere peak 1st stage Foundation level cultivator like me contend against a 7th stage existence? Or should I have watched from the sidelines as my blood essence is stolen and Elora is enslaved? Should I have died in the Dragon Temple? The only way to kill him was to swallow the blood essence.
Zane was calm and composed, his words well articulated. The 5 people were stunned. What Zane said made sense. No matter how bad it was, it couldn't be worse than what he said. Moreover, in the end, the Azure Dragon's essence blood had still fallen into the hands of a disciple of the Azure Dragon Academy. Was it a blessing in disguise? But no matter how hard they tried to comfort themselves, it was still the blood essence of the Azure Dragon. Ever since the founders of the 5 Spirit Sect had been sealed, the blood essence that the major cultivation academies had obtained was extremely small, especially for the weakest Azure Dragon Academy, which had yet to receive even 3 drops for a long time. However, one of them was now in Zane's body.
Dean Harrison, there is no other choice but to hurl Zane into the furnace and refine him. Maybe we can squeeze out a little bit of blood essence.
Not only was Zane shocked, even Alora and the others were stunned and anxious. They immediately started pleading his case.
Father, elders, Zane had no choice but to swallow the blood essence. It was purely to save me. Moreover, didn't he just say that he awakened his talent to have such power? Are we going to sacrifice a talent for that little blood we may or may not extract?
Harrison's face was ashen. He was in a dilemma. Lane was right, but Alora was making a convincing case as well in Zane's defense. If he wasted a genius without any gains, he would lose more than he gained.
Someone bring the sky mirror over. I will personally test Zane's talent.
Within the time it took to drink a cup of tea, a huge crystal mirror that emitted a completely different fluctuation was moved in front of Zane. The edge of the mirror was surrounded by rolling multicolored light. It was as if even the clouds in the 9 heavens were reflected in it.
This sky mirror is the most precious treasure of my Azure Dragon Academy. It is the only innate spirit treasure. Once you drip your blood essence on it, we will immediately be able to see how talented you are.
Under the command of Harrison Xavier, Zane bit his finger and swiped it against the mirror. Suddenly, there was a violent tremor. There was a roar of muffled thunder coming from the sky mirror, and a terrible aura of power was reflected in it. Endless dark clouds gathered in the mirror. In an instant, heaven and earth collapsed and the lightning fell. A supreme might pervaded the center of the dark clouds, tearing through the sky. There was even the thunderous roar of a fiend god. A huge silver body danced wildly in the wind. It turned out to be an incomparably majestic 5-clawed silver dragon. 6 dazzling starlights appeared within them.
Dragon! It's a dragon!
6-star. Talent.
The expressions on everyone's faces were extremely exaggerated and wonderful. Lane, who had been targeting Zane just now, opened his mouth wide and could not close it for a long time.
Great, that's magnificent.
Harrison Xavier woke up from the shock and laughed wildly at the sky.
A 6-star talent and a high-grade spiritual body, the successor of our Azure Dragon Academy has been birthed. Zane, was your talent and spiritual body born after devouring the blood essence? What kind of spiritual body is it? What is the name of this form?
It's the form of the Elder Wyvern Master.
Good. What a marvelous form of the Elder Wyvern.